Before he became one of the most recognizable faces in sports media, Ryan Clark was a hard-hitting safety from the Bayou State who rose through the ranks from undrafted free agent to Super Bowl champion. He might be beefing with Aaron Rodgers in 2024, but back in the day, Clark was handing out concussions like they were candy, even after surviving a publicized near-death experience, and all while going largely unrecognized for his efforts. Let's take a look back at his roller coaster career and try to discern just how good Ryan Clark actually was. Born and raised in one of the nation's hotbeds for talent at defensive back, Clark played his high school and college ball on the Bayou. The New Orleans native made the trek up the Mississippi to represent the LSU Tigers in 1997. He redshirted his first year but emerged as a reliable special teamer and rotational defensive back the following season. By 1999, Clark had become the Tigers' starting safety and finished the season leading the team in tackles, interceptions, pass breakups, and forced fumbles. Clark earned second-team All-SEC honors in 2000 as part of a much-improved LSU program led by first-year head coach Nick Saban. He remained an elite tackler whose reading of the game allowed him to stunt opposing offenses. His senior season was solid, but showed a slight decline from years prior, which kept the number one free safety prospect in that year's draft, Miami's Ed Reed, far out of reach. The Bengals had shown interest in LSU's number 2, but Clark himself knew that it was unlikely he'd be going early in the draft. Then, 261 picks later, he found himself without a place to go out of college. He had heard from his hometown New Orleans Saints, who eventually found someone else to fill the free safety slot on their practice squad. Hope was running thin until the New York Giants offered him a spot. Clark made the final roster as a backup safety and special teamer, but saw limited time to start the season before being bumped back down to the practice squad by October. By now, Clark was used to being counted out, so he remained unfazed and earned a spot on the final roster the following season, playing in every game for New York and even managing 4 starts as a rotational piece for a very weak Giants team. He was waived at the end of the 2003 season, but signed with divisional rivals the Washington Redskins shortly thereafter in a stint that would help elevate his career. Initially 4th on the depth chart and unlikely to see much time on the field at safety, a myriad of injuries saw him starting alongside rookie superstar Sean Taylor. The two struck up a strong relationship on and off the field. Clark's reliability and ability to read the game would set Taylor up to make explosive plays with the knowledge that Clark could cover any other duties for him. This dynamic duo continued well into an injury-riddled 2005 season for RC, where they qualified for the postseason for the first time since the turn of the millennium. Clark had the second most picks on the team that season and even helped Washington to a wild-card victory over the Bucs with his 7 combined tackles. Washington came up short in Seattle the following weekend, but in his 4th season in the league, Ryan Clark had proven himself to be a more than capable player for any NFL franchise. However, in a puzzling move, the Redskins released him so that they could open up space for the Rams' Adam Archuleta, who became the highest-paid safety up to that point in NFL history. It was 2006, and the Steelers jumped at the opportunity to sign the former LSU Tiger, penning Ryan Clark to a 4-year, $7 million deal, and he made an instant impact in the Steel City. Starting next to another legendary talent at safety in Troy Polamalu, Ryan Clark saw similar duties as he had in Washington. He was the bedrock in the secondary that allowed his team's other elite playmakers to shine. He led the defense in fumble recoveries his first year in Pittsburgh, though they failed to qualify for the postseason. Now a 6-year veteran and a nailed-on starter in one of the most feared secondaries in all of football, Clark began 2007 in fine form. Pittsburgh flew out to a 4-1 start, traveling to Denver in Week 7, where they would have to play from behind for the majority of a 31-28 defeat. An even bigger loss came just after the game, when Ryan Clark was rushed to the hospital as a result of a sharp pain on his left side. They sent him home with pain medication, only for him to be sick for the next month, running a 103-degree fever on a nightly basis, losing 40 pounds in the process. Doctors eventually discovered a splenic infarction, which was caused by the altitude in Denver, triggering Clark's recessive sickle cell anemia trait. Carrying the gene typically has little to no impact, but in rare cases, such as Clark's, it can cause adverse reactions when placed under environmental duress. According to SB Nation, this meant a shortage of oxygen in his bloodstream, causing tissue death in multiple organs. He eventually had his gallbladder removed as well, but miraculously was told he could eventually make a full recovery and continue to play in the NFL. Ryan Clark returned to the gridiron for the 2008 season opener, logging 8 combined tackles to kick off a legendary year for Pittsburgh. His 88 combined tackles were third best on a formidable Steelers defense, which was comfortably the best in the league, helping the black and yellow to a 12-4 record and the AFC 2 seed. Clark had a far from ideal postseason opener, failing to convert a fake punt while mustering just 2 tackles against the Chargers offense that put up 24 points at Heinz Field, only the third team to do so all season. They met the Ravens for the AFC Championship, who they had beaten twice already in an all-time classic that defines everything this rivalry stands for. Tough, physical defense epitomized by Ryan Clark sending Willis McGahee into the shadow realm deep in the fourth quarter. The forced fumble helped Pittsburgh ice the game, however. It was RC's fellow safety Troy Polamalu who stole the show that night, with number 43 sending Pittsburgh through to Super Bowl 43 and a shot at eternal glory. While Ryan Clark didn't have a standout performance against the Cardinals, only able to watch as Larry Fitzgerald scored the go-ahead touchdown with 2:37 to go, his 5 combined tackles on the night were enough to see the Steelers to their 6th Lombardi Trophy in franchise history. In the same stadium where he enjoyed his first taste of postseason glory back in 2006, Ryan Clark had reached the pinnacle of footballing success just 3 years later. Even more impressive, he had overcome a life-threatening illness just over a year prior, proving to the franchise just how valuable he was. After fighting through adversity in New York, Washington, and Pittsburgh, Clark had finally found a home as the free safety of the Super Bowl champions 6 years after going undrafted. He remained at the top of his game in the years to come, recording career highs in combined tackles in 2009 and 2010 with 89 and 90 respectively, while also tying his career best with 3 picks in 2009, the best on the Steelers' defense. He was the top tackler amongst defensive backs both years, helping the Steelers to another 12-4 record and AFC 2 seed in 2010. Just as they had in 2008, the Steelers downed the Ravens in a tight contest in what should go down as a legacy game for Ryan Clark. Pittsburgh struggled through the first 2 quarters, coming out of the half down 21-7. With the Ravens in possession of the ball early in the third, Clark forced a fumble out of Ray Rice at the Baltimore 27, allowing the offense to narrow the deficit to 21-14. After Pittsburgh's following drive stalled, Joe Flacco looked to air it out from his own 10-yard line, only to be picked off by Ryan Clark, who set off yet another scoring drive for the Steelers offense to level the game. With 2 momentum-shifting plays to keep his team in a back-and-forth game, there was no doubt that Ryan Clark was in his prime at the age of 31. They beat out the Jets in the AFC Championship game to set up a second Super Bowl in 3 seasons. Although they ultimately came up short against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, RC led the team in tackles in their 1-score loss in Super Bowl 45, but would come back to enjoy a career season in 2011. Breaking the 100 combined tackles mark for the first time in his career, RC also set a career best in tackles for loss with 5, earning him his first and only Pro Bowl nod at the ripe age of 32. Looking to avenge their Super Bowl loss with yet another 12-4 record, the Steelers would have to head back to Denver in order to face the Broncos in Mile High. Despite being medically cleared to play in the high altitude, his head coach Mike Tomlin made the difficult decision to bench his Pro Bowl safety, not risking a repeat of the traumatic events that transpired in 2007. Pittsburgh lost the game in overtime, a tough blow to their hopes of establishing a dynasty. Instead, they continued to decline in the coming years, failing to reach the playoffs in either 2012 or 2013. While Clark put up over 100 combined tackles both seasons, continuing to be a reliable producer in that Steelers secondary through his early 30s, the Pittsburgh front office began looking towards the future. The defense had fallen from 6th best in points against to 14th best from 2012 to 2013. When it came time to decide who would be on the chopping block as a result, putting up the 34-year-old free safety who had visibly lost a step seemed like a no-brainer, especially after signing free agent Mike Mitchell to a mega deal as his replacement. Ryan Clark was gracious in his departure from the Steelers, sending out a heartfelt message of gratitude for the organization. He would return to Washington on a one-year deal where he looked worth every penny through his first 4 games, totaling 27 tackles, before sustaining an ankle injury against Seattle. The medical staff informed him that he'd need surgery in order to fully recover, but RC felt that at 35, there was simply no need. He played through the pain the rest of the year, finishing with the second most tackles and picks on a woeful Washington team. However, the mammoth effort he put in just to be physically able to play on Sundays while nursing the ankle injury and allowing his 35-year-old body to recover in time simply outweighed his love of football. He announced his retirement at season's end, as a Steeler, of course, closing the door on a 13-year professional career. So now that we have all of the facts down, it's time to evaluate once and for all how good Ryan Clark actually was. Thankfully, he's already done it for us. In all seriousness, Ryan Clark had a criminally underrated career as he spent his prime years setting the stage for big-name stars to perform. Truth be told, there's no shame in playing second fiddle to an all-time great like Troy Polamalu. While he won't go down as a Hall of Famer for his limited individual accolades and statistics, he was nonetheless a crucial part of winning teams and knew how to push those around him to succeed. Going from undrafted to reaching 2 Super Bowls throughout a 13-year career is no small feat, demonstrating longevity and leadership that truly made Ryan Clark special as a player. The Ravens vs. Steelers games from that era were absolute carnage, with Hall of Famer Ed Reed showing some love on RC's Pivot podcast. If the ball hawk is saying this about Ryan Clark's playing career, it tells you that his contemporaries in the NFL thought even more highly of him than most fans do today. But what do you think? Is Ed Reed right? Does Ryan Clark deserve a spot in the Hall of Fame? Let me know in the comments.